Alright, so chapter 9 is called A View of Death. And we are going to begin on page 145. So in your book, 145, the chapter opens, what is approaching the island, and what is it usually a sign of in literature? Carmela, what do you got for number 1?
It said, the buildup of clouds and the sun between snow and rain, and it's usually a sign of things like not working out for them, or not knowing what else to do.
Okay, and in literature in general, an approaching storm is a sign of what? Trouble, right? Something bad's going to happen. Okay, good. So the chapter opens with the line that you referenced, Carmela, that says, over the island, the buildup of clouds continued. So you can see that something is brewing, something is approaching the island. So a storm signifies that something bad is going to happen, and that is exactly what happens in chapter 9. So it's all sort of foreshadowing and sort of symbolism in this scene. So we're actually going to start 145, first paragraph, last 2 lines. Okay, so we're actually going to come down in the paragraph a little bit. Could you find the line that begins, nothing prospered? See where I am? Nothing prospered. Okay, highlight. But the flies who blackened their lord, it made the spilt guts look like a heap of glistening coal. Even when the vessel broke in Simon's nose and the blood gushed out, they left him alone, preferring the pig's high flavor. You can stop there. Okay, so great imagery there. The pig's head is now entirely covered in thousands of flies. And Simon's seizure ends with a nosebleed. So his nose starts to bleed. And it says, with the running of the blood, Simon's fit passed into a weariness of sleep. He falls into a deep sleep, and he's there for an unknown amount of time. But that's normal. And people who have seizures, depending on the severity of their seizure, are very exhausted when they come out of it. All of their muscles are exhausted, and so they usually go to sleep for a period of time. So that makes sense. When he wakes up, at the bottom of 145, highlight, Simon spoke aloud to the clearing. What else is there to do? Just those 2 lines. The first thing he says out loud when he wakes up is simply, what else is there to do? What does that mean? Do what? What is he talking about?
What else is there to do but go up to the mountain and see with the beasts?
He's telling us that he's going to climb the mountain. Now, why that line is significant, keep a finger here and go back with me to page 128. On page 128, we see him saying the exact same line, correct? Do you have that highlighted?
Oh, yeah.
On 129? What else is there to do? And what did he say before that line that you highlighted?
He said, what's the good of finding up to this here beast when Ralph and the other 2 couldn't do something?
That's actually Piggy. Go up a little bit further.
I thought we ought to climb the mountain.
Yes, that's Simon. He says, I think we ought to climb the mountain. What else is there to do? So that tells us, when he says it on page 145, that tells us exactly what he is going to do. And that is the direct opposite of what the Lord of the Flies wants him to do. Do you remember chapter 8? He says, don't try it on, meaning don't do that, or else, what did he say? We shall
Kill you.
do you. Yes, very good. And that's exactly what's going to happen. So now, on 146, he begins making his way towards the mountain, and he is barely moving, guys. His legs are so weak that Golding mentions on 3 different occasions that Simon is staggering. So he's barely able to keep his weight up, and he's walking sort of in a limping fashion, sort of staggering his way up the mountain, but he does not stop. He goes directly up, and he gets all the way up to the top. And I want to start on 146, and I want to start in this middle paragraph. Okay, read with me. It says, let's see, the wind, it made him stagger, and he saw that he was out in the open, on rock, under a brassy sky. He found his legs were weak, and his tongue gave him pain all the time. When the wind reached the mountaintop, he could see something happen, a flicker of blue stuff against the brown clouds. That is the parachute. So the parachute is blue in color. He pushed himself forward, and the wind came again, stronger now, cupping the forest heads until he ducked and roared. Simon saw a humped thing suddenly sit up on top of the mountain and look down at him. He hid his face and toiled on. And let's take the next paragraph. Highlight. The flies had found the figure 2. The lifelike movement would scare them off for a moment so that they made a dark cloud around the head. Then, as the blue material of the parachute collapsed, the corpulent figure would bow forward, sighing, and the flies would settle once more. You can stop there. So he sees it. He sees this person moving because of the breeze. It says Simon felt his knees smack the rock. He crawled forward, and soon he understood. The tangle of lines showed him the mechanics of this parody. He examined the white nasal bones, the teeth, the colors of corruption. He saw how pitilessly the layers of rubber and canvas held together the poor body that should be rotting away. And then the wind blew again, and the figure lifted and bowed and breathed foully at him. Simon knelt on all fours and was sick until his stomach was empty. So the stench coming off of this body is horrific, and the breeze blows it right into Simon's face, and he has to double over and throw up right there because it smells so bad. And then, how does he free the boys from this beast?
A lot of people are missing this part.
What does he do right here, Evan? Yes, and if this is the thing that they believe is the beast, you can see how he's sort of freeing them because he's untangling the lines, okay? So there we go. And let's highlight that. That's at the bottom of 146, and it goes on to the top of 147. Highlight. Then he took the lines in his hands. He freed them from the rocks and the figure from the wind's indignity. Just that part. So he's releasing this body physically, and he's also sort of symbolically releasing the boys from this beast that's been stuck up on the mountain. So he turns and he looks down. Okay, read with me. It says, at last he turned away and he looked down at the beach. Okay, now do you remember what the Lord of the Flies said? He said, don't try, right? Don't try anything. You know that you're only going to meet me down there. Remember we talked about the double meaning of down there, right? So he's looking down there right now at the beach, and he's trying to see where the boys are. And it says, far along the beach, beyond the little river, near a great slab of rock, a thin trickle of smoke was climbing into the sky. Simon, forgetful of the flies, shaded his eyes with both hands and peered at the smoke. Even at that distance, it was possible to see that most of the boys, perhaps all of the boys, were there. So they had shifted camp then, away from the beast. Simon thought this. He turned to the poor broken thing that sat stinking beside him, and we're going to highlight the last 3 lines of this paragraph on the top of 147. Highlight, the beast was harmless and horrible, and the news must reach the others as soon as possible. He started down the mountain, and his legs gave beneath him. Even with great care, the best he could do was a stagger. So he has news to share, right? Good news? Good news? Yeah, right? There's no beast, guys. The thing you saw up on the mountain that you were all terrified of is just a dead pilot. And that's telling us that there are planes flying over our islands, and we could get rescued if we could just keep a fire going. There's nothing to be afraid of. There's no beast. So he's going to go down to the beach and tell them. Okay, so 147, we shift scenes and we go to Piggy and Ralph, and I really think that this is only in here for Golding to show you that all of the boys have abandoned them. They are the only 2 boys by the platform, and they're just swimming and like trying to figure out what they're gonna do. And on 148, Piggy convinces Ralph, perhaps we should go. I mean, just to make sure nothing happens. And they end up walking over to Jack's side of the island, which is probably not smart, but they end up going. Okay? And that's gonna bring us to number 3. On pages 148, 149, and 150, we get a glimpse of this new tribe and its new leader. And what do you think? What is he like? What does he look like? Where is he when Ralph and Piggy arrive? What kinds of things is he saying to his group of boys? What did you say for number 3? Abby, go ahead.
So I said that he acted like a king, he sat in the middle of the boys, and like commanded them to do things.
What made you go with the word king?
Because like he sat in the middle of like the throne, yeah, and he commanded the boys to like grab him water and like give the boys meat.
Yes. Yes. Okay, so we have William. You're not on video now.
It's okay.
Okay, so Mrs. Mosey is demonstrating Jack's probably likely appearance. He's sitting there garlanded. He's got like leaves and flowers probably around his neck. He's painted. He's sitting up higher than all of the other boys on purpose. And below him are all of these leaves with piles of food and coconut shells of drink. And all the boys are below him. And just like Abby said, he's barking orders at them, right? Things like, get me a drink. Take them some meat. Has everybody eaten as much as they want, right? And yes, he is like, I mean, what would you, besides a king, what else would you liken this to? What else?
Yeah, dictatorship like.
Well, the barking of the orders, absolutely. But the fact that he's up higher than them,
He's better than everyone.
sort of,
Monarchy?
that would be like king. I'm thinking of something else.
Prestige. Pirate.
It says, what, bottom of 148,
Like a deity or something?
bottom of 148, ready? Ready? Bottom of 148, last 2 words, before the, highlight, before the, and then go up to 149. Before the party had started, a great log had been dragged into the center of the lawn, and Jack, painted and garlanded, sat there like an idol. Yeah, so he was right, like a god, right? And it says there were piles of meat on green leaves near him and fruit and coconut shells full of drink. Okay, so when Ralph and Piggy actually get to the feast, Jack is sitting there like a god, and all of the boys are below him, like they're worshiping him. Okay?
Look how that worked out for once.
That's actually the quote I had.
What was that one?
I mean, that's how you have to live to stay alive.
That one like he was
Look
like
at Ralph.
Egyptian. He was like a king.
Oh, King Tut. King Tut.
Yeah.
Yes.
He died at
He was like
13.
an older.
Yeah.
Died at
Because rocks
13.
fell off.
So on 149, can you just come down the page, like past the halfway point, and do you see where it says, Jack stood up and waved his spear? It's below the bigger paragraphs. Okay, start reading here with me. It says, Jack stood up and waved his spear. Take them some meat. Okay, so highlight that. That's his first order. Take them some meat. And then pause. It says, the boys with the spit gave Ralph and Piggy each a succulent chunk. They took the gift, dribbling, so they stood at meat beneath the sky of thunderous brass that rang with the storm coming. And then you're gonna highlight, Jack waved his spear again. Has everybody eaten as much as they want? And then pause there. There was still food left, sizzling on the wooden spits, heaped on the green platters. Betrayed by his stomach, Piggy threw a picked bone down and on the beach and stooped for more. And highlight one more time, Jack spoke again impatiently. Has everybody eaten as much as they want? His tone conveyed a warning, given out of the pride of ownership, and the boys ate faster while there was still time. You can stop there. Okay? Flip. 150. Highlight. Jack rose from the log that was his throne. Good job, Abby. And sauntered to the edge of the grass. He looked down from behind his taint at Ralph and Piggy. And you can stop right there. And at the end of that paragraph, it says, evening was come, not with calm beauty, but with the threat of violence, foreshadowing. And Jack spoke, "Give me a drink." And Henry, one of the little boys, runs over, grabs a coconut shell, and brings it back to him, and he stands there and he drinks, and he stares Ralph down. Okay? He says, "All sit down." And all the boys sit down, and he says, "Who's going to join my tribe?" And I feel like he's doing this again just to stick it in Ralph's face. And he says, "I gave you food, and my hunters will protect you from the beast. Who will join my tribe?" And Ralph makes a desperate attempt. He says, "I'm chief, because you chose me, and we were going to keep a fire going, and now you run after food. You ran yourself," shouted Jack. "Look at that bone in your hands." And Ralph's face goes red. And he says, "But I said you were hunters. That was your job." Jack ignored him. "Who will join my tribe and have fun?" And he says again, "I'm chief. And what about the fire? And I've got the conch." And Jack says, "You haven't got it with you. You left it behind. See, clever. And the conch doesn't count at this end of the island." All at once, the thunder booms in the sky. Top of 151, Ralph says, "The conch counts here too, and all over this island." And Jack's response, "What are you going to do about it then?" And Ralph looks at all of the boys, and Piggy whispers to him, "Fire, rescue." And right here on 151 is where I want you to start a highlight. And for the third time, Jack asks, "Who will join my tribe?" Highlight. And all the responses, "Me, I will, I will." And Ralph says, "I'll blow the conch," said Ralph breathlessly, "and call an assembly." And I want you to end your highlight with Jack's response, "We shan't hear it." So that, for them, is the end of the show. Jack's group, we shan't hear it. We don't listen to your rules. Okay? All right, so leadership style is going to probably have in your answer things like dictator, right? Tyrant, acts like a king, treated like a god, barking orders, people are afraid of him, right? Luke,
Does overlord work?
that would be fine, yes. Okay? So definitely barking orders. Okay, so now, after he and Ralph have this back and forth, Piggy tries to get him to leave, and he says, "Come away. There's going to be trouble, and we've had our meat." And Ralph can't let it go, and he says, "There's going to be a storm, and you'll have rain like when we dropped in here. Who's clever now? Where are your shelters? What are you going to do about that?" And when he says it, Jack's hunters start looking up, and they're getting very uneasy about how the sky looks, and they're starting to get nervous. And Jack leaps onto the sand, and what is his answer to not having shelters during the storm? What does he say? He says, "Dance, come on, let's do our dance." And he brings all of the boys down to the beach, and they get into a circle in the darkness, and they start chanting, right? And moving in a circle. I don't know why that's the answer, but apparently that's the answer.
Guess he's good at dancing.
Okay.
Maybe
Dancing
he's
and singing are
like,
apparently
appease
very
the gods.
crucial for your
You can't
survival.
touch, you can't sing. Okay, so bottom of 151, see the paragraph that starts with, he ran stumbling? Do you see that? Yes? Bottom of 151, do you see like do our dance, come on dance? Yes, okay, highlight that line. So do our dance, come on dance. And then skip the next line, and then I want you to highlight, between the flashes of lightning, the air was dark and terrible. The boys followed him clamorously. Roger became the pig, grunting and charging at Jack, who sidestepped. The hunters took their spears, the cooks took spits, and the rest clubs of firewood. And you're gonna stop there. Guys, that last line, did anybody have that as part of the answer for number 4? You did? What did you write? Well, yeah, whatever. It's up to you.
I feel like the Roger like that piece, like go around and try to like
They got into it too, Well, I mean, somebody has always pretended to be the pig in the previous chants. Like, that's not different. But what I'm commenting on is the last line that you highlighted says, the hunters took their spears, the cooks took their spits, and the rest of the boys grabbed pieces of firewood. So that tells me as a reader that every boy in the chant is holding a weapon of some sort. So when they actually go to attack the beast, which is really Simon, they are not hitting him with bare fists. Did anybody put that together? They're hitting him with pieces of firewood and poking him with spears and whatever they're holding in their hands. So that's one of the things that you might have for how this one changes. It becomes way more violent. What else changes in this chant? What are they saying that's different than previous chants? Noah?
They added do him in. Like,
Do him in was a fourth line that gets added, and something else, Josh?
They killed the beast, cut his throat.
Right, so no longer kill the pig, cut her throat, spill her blood. Now we are kill the beast, cut his throat, spill his blood. So that chant becomes differently, okay? And that do him in part is a direct reference to the Lord of the Flies. He says, don't try it on or we shall do you, okay? So now, we have a whole bunch of highlights together on 152, so let's go to 152, and I want you to start at the top of the page, okay? Question 5. Piggy and Ralph have a chance to leave. Why don't they leave? Why don't they go? Top of 152, what does it say? There's your answer. Why don't they leave? Caitlin. One of the things is they're terrified of this thunderstorm that looks very violent and is throwing down on the island. What else, Melly?
They were eager to take place.
But partly secure society. Do you know what that means? What does that mean, Josh? Yeah, like we can stay here where there's lots of people and feel a little bit more safe, or we can go over to the other side of the island where we're totally alone and we might feel more scared. And what do they have to walk through to get back to their platform and their side of the island? What do they have to walk through? How? What do they walk
Or
through?
like the jungle.
Yes, and what do they still think is out there?
The beast.
Yes. So it's dark, it's storming, I have to walk through the jungle, I have to be alone, and the beast might get me. I'm staying here, even though this place is demented. I love Golding's choice of word there. Demented side of the island, but a little bit safer, we think. Okay? So let's highlight that. Top of 152, it's the last 3 words of the first line, starting with Piggy and Ralph, under the threat of the sky, found themselves eager to take a place in this demented but partly secure society. Okay? Now, as the chant begins, where are Piggy and Ralph? Very important. Read the next line. What's it say? Based on that line, where are they when the chant begins? Abby? They're on the outside. So that circle of boys is circling and moving, and they are behind those boys, touching their backs, like they're on the outside. That's very important, okay? So they all start, kill the beast, cut his throat, spill his blood. The chant becomes more regular, and it becomes to have like a pulse. At first, Roger's being the pig, but then he steps aside, and the center of the circle is empty, waiting for something else to enter it. And then again, the whole time they're chanting, they're getting louder and louder each time. The thunder is booming, the lightning is going across the sky. Everything's getting louder, so they're having a hard time hearing because they're all shouting and screaming. Right in the middle of page 152, you're going to see kill the beast, cut his throat, spill his blood. And it says again, the blue-white scar jagged above them, a sulfurous explosion beat down, the little ones screamed and blundered about, fleeing from the edge of the forest, and one of them broke the ring of Biggins in terror. They were in a circle, moving and chanting, and one of the little ones runs through the circle and opens it. So now what becomes a horseshoe looks like this, And the opening of the horseshoe is right at the opening, the beginnings of the jungle, okay? So it says, him. See that on page 152? Right below the halfway point, see it? Him. Highlight. The circle became a horseshoe. A thing was crawling out of the forest. It came darkly, uncertainly. The shrill screaming that rose before the beast was like a pain. The beast stumbled into the horseshoe. Okay, that tells us that when the chant first opens up, they see something crawling in the dark, and they think it is the beast, because it says the beast was crawling, right? But look at what happens next. Just then, the blue-white scar was constant, which means that a giant lightning bolt lit up the sky and lit up the beach. And then look what Golding says. He doesn't say the beast, he says Simon. Highlight. Simon was crying out something about a dead man on a hill. Keep highlighting. Kill the beast, cut his throat, spill his blood, do him in. And we are going to highlight from this paragraph up to 153, that whole paragraph. So if you want to put like a box around it, you could do that. If your highlighter's still alive, you can highlight all the lines. And this is what it says. The sticks fell and the mouth of the new circle crunched and screamed. The beast was on its knees. Did you catch this? In the center, its arms folded over its face. Was Simon fighting back? No. He let them attack him. He did not fight back. It says, it was crying out against the abominable noise, something about a body on a hill. Who is hearing that? Somebody is hearing it, because we wouldn't know it otherwise. The beast struggled forward, broke the ring, and fell over the steep edge of the rock to the sand by the water. Keep highlighting. At once the crowd surged after it and poured down the rock and leapt onto the beast and screamed and struck and bit and tore, and there were no words and no movements but the tearing of teeth and claws. You can pause there. What tone is Golding setting in this scene with words like claws and bit and tore and teeth and struck and those types of words? What is he trying to make you understand about what these boys are experiencing? What is the tone?
They're the beast.
Claws and teeth, because that's how Sam and Eric described it, right? That they are acting like beasts. Simon, maybe there is a beast. Maybe it's only. What else? Go ahead, Luke.
Oh, that's me.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of horrifying.
Yes. But what is the tone? Like, he's describing them as beast-like, but I'm almost thinking of another word. I love beast-like.
Is it
Yeah. Savage,
Like devilish.
sort of. But what has teeth and claws?
bears? They're like animals.
Animalistic, yes. They're like animals. They're animalistic. It's this raw savageness, and they're just destroying this boy. Okay? The big question in chapter 9 is, do they know what they're doing? Do they know it's him? At what point do they know it's him and they don't stop? Okay, so the outcome of the dance is that the boys mistake Simon for the beast, and in a moment of terror they beat him to death. And we added a quote: the beast struggled forward, the crowd surged after it, screamed, struck, bit, and tore.
He did.
It
Okay?
sounded like you could run even.
Now, the reason why they stop, you guys, is because the rain begins. And I know that because if I look on 153, it says the clouds opened and let the rain down like a waterfall. And as soon as the water hits them, it like splashed some sense into them. And they all started to back away. And bottom of that paragraph, we're going to highlight, I'm right here. Even in the rain, they could see how small a beast it was. And already its blood was staining the sand. So I'm like,
It's your second
second paragraph, last line. Now, symbolism. at this very same moment that they, I guess, believe that they have killed the beast, what happens to the beast on the mountain? At the very same moment, look at the next paragraph, what happens? What happens, Riley?
The parachute took the figure forward and the dude and bumped it over the reef and mountains.
So the wind picks up the body and carries it out to sea at the very moment that they believe they've killed this other beast. Now, one thing I want to highlight in there, it says, let's see, read with me. Now a great wind blew the rain sideways, cascading the water from the trees. Highlight, on the mountaintop, the parachute filled and moved. The figure slid, rose to its feet, spun, and swayed down through a vastness of wet air, and trod with ungainly feet the tops of high trees, falling, still falling. It sank toward the beach, and the boys rushed screaming into the darkness. What does that tell you? Why? So are you saying that some of them saw it? Yes. Some of the boys on the beach saw this thing flying off the mountain and coming down towards them and into the ocean and disappeared, and that's going to be important later. Okay? 7, how does his body disappear? When they back away, he's lying sort of crumpled on the sand. Blood is stained all over the place. And what happens? Okay, Lucy, go ahead.
Well, I said the body disappears by having like movie body creatures with fiery eyes like seep into the broken body and cover his hair and his shoulders, and they become a sculptured marble. And then the waves gently took him out to sea with the beautiful scenery, including the constellations mirroring.
So after this very bloody, violent scene, Golding portrays this very calm and beautiful and peaceful scene where the tide comes in and lifts up his body and carries it out to the ocean where it disappears. Now, do you understand the first part of what she said? Do you understand what those little things are that it's describing in the water?
The lights and the.
Does anybody? Yeah.
Jellyfish.
They're little tiny creatures, like microscopic creatures that sort of, and they glow. Yeah, okay, so we're gonna show you a picture, okay? Turn the lights down.
Yeah.
Did they know that they killed Simon?
So
these actually.
in some tropical locations, you get water that looks like this.
Ooh.
And when the tide washes in, there's these little tiny creatures that they glow, and everything they touch, they sort of attach to. And so as Simon's lying on the beach, the tide's coming in with all of these little creatures that glow, and it's covering his body, and it's covering his hair, and as the tide comes in, it lifts his body up, and it's gonna wash him quietly out to sea. Okay, so we have 3 pictures of what this stuff looks like.
It's like pixie dust, but real.
It's like wet pixie dust.
Can you fly with it?
Pretty
It's very
cool.
moist.
I was the what?
Alright, so that's what happens. Alright, okay. Now, why is it important that his body disappears? Did anybody have a comment on that? What's that? That's such a great answer. Okay, so because
If it had been there.
listen, if you knew what you did and you had to look at him lying there and see the destruction that you caused and look at all the blood stains that were everywhere, it would make you feel guilty and you would be festering over it. And it's very significant that the water comes in and washes everything away. It's almost like their what have been washed away. Any of my religious people, Michael, their sins have been washed away. The water comes in, yes we can, the water comes in and cleans everything, and there's no evidence of what they've done. Okay, does anybody find it a little strange that once again a boy on the island has died and there's no evidence of anything? the boy with the mulberry birthmark. Where did he go? Now we have Simon. He's gone. There's no reminder of what they've done, of their horribleness, okay? As far as 8 goes, this was sort of like an enrichment question. There are plenty of parallels between, critics will argue that Simon is like a Jesus-like figure, a Christ-like figure, which is a very common type of character in literature. There are so many parallels that I could spend days talking about all of them, but obviously one of the biggest parallels is that Jesus was believed to have his body raised from the dead, and 3 days in the tomb, his body had disappeared when they rolled away the stone, and similarly, Simon's body disappears and is gone. There are plenty of other parallels, such as Jesus was believed to have been sinless and purely good, and Simon is the only boy on the island who never does anything wrong. So there's lots and lots of parallels. The last question is, do you think he knew he was going to die? And is there any evidence that would tell you that that is the case? Look at all these good hands. All right, Josh, go ahead.
So, chapter 10,
Yep.
Simon off the route,
Yep.
he says that you, like just him, like he's not sure about everyone else.
Yeah.
He says you're gonna make it back.
How many of you had that exact answer? The one about you'll get back all right. At least I think so anyway, right? And did he know something? Was he just saying that? Yeah. Okay.
It's also said.
Alright, so we wrote, yep, that one, and the what else is there to do? I kind of feel like he knew, like he had to die. What else is there to do?
He'd have to go.
Okay, alright.
Like, give him